23-24 season was a disaster for Napoli. After Spalletti leaving the club, his falling out with De Laurentiis, Rudi Garcia entered the job, and that didn't go so well. Lasted until November. Walter Mazzarri entered the club. That didn't go so well either, as he went from November to February. He got sacked, and Calzona took the rest of the season. Napoli, after winning the title in 2023, finished in 10th place last season. So what was going to be the fix? What was going to be the solution? De Laurentiis had to learn from his mistakes of falling out with the manager and hire a manager that could get the best out of these players. The most unlikely combination, as Antonio Conte became the manager of Napoli last summer. Two very hot-headed personalities combining. Was this going to be successful, or was this going to be a disaster? No doubt De Laurentiis backed Conte with the signings of Gilmore, Scott McTominay, Buongiorno, bringing in Lukaku, but Osimhen was leaving the club, going on loan to Galatasaray. So what was going to be the aspirations for Napoli this season with Conte in his first season? As we know with Conte in his prior jobs, the first season is always the most successful. And some people did believe that Napoli could win the Scudetto this season.
When he's got a week to prepare for matches, he's an expert. That immediately puts Napoli into the position to talk about them for Scudetto favorite.
I wasn't really on that case because we saw how broken of a side they were in the 23-24 season. They had no continuity. They were losing to Frosinone in the Coppa Italia at home 4-0. They were losing away to Torino 3-0. There was nothing about this team that screamed they can challenge for the Scudetto this season. And of course, with the ongoing saga of Kvaratskhelia possibly leaving the club, there was so much drama around Napoli. How were they going to challenge the Scudetto? And it didn't start off the greatest with Antonio Conte. In their first game of the season, they lost to Hellas Verona 3-0. And the comments by Antonio Conte after the game were hilarious. In the first half, there was only one team on the pitch. I don't think Verona ever shot. Having said that, in the second half, we immediately conceded a shot to Verona, and in the second situation, we went behind. Then, we melted like snow in the sun. What I feel like saying is that we must humbly apologize to the Neapolitan people who follow us with passion. Think of those comments after the first game of the season where you get embarrassed away from home against Verona, to right now, Napoli are Scudetto champions for a fourth time in their history, the second Scudetto in the last 3 years. And for me, this might be Antonio Conte's greatest achievement. Yes, he did amazing at Chelsea. He did amazing with Inter, rejuvenating the team and bringing back the Scudetto there. He did great with Juventus, bringing the Scudetto back there as well. But look at the squad that Napoli have right now. Of course, is this the best team on paper? No. Is it a top 4 team? You could give that argument, but we saw how terrible Meret was last season. To Di Lorenzo, to Juan Jesus. Like, these guys were so abysmal. To see how they are performing right now in this season is a magical work by Antonio Conte. Kvaratskhelia, he left in the January transfer window. Him and De Laurentiis, Conte and De Laurentiis were budging with each other. Okay, let's spend the money now. Remember, there was the links to Garnacho, to Adeyemi. Okay, we got to bring in somebody to replace Kvaratskhelia. And you know who they got? Noah Okafor from Milan. And I don't think he's played any minutes. I think I've seen him on the field like 5-10 minutes this season since he's joined Napoli. So Conte didn't get the backing in the January transfer window from De Laurentiis, yet still won the Scudetto. One, because defensively they have been unbelievable this season. Rahmani, wow, what a season by Rahmani. I know Buongiorno is a very good center back, but he's been injured most of this season. So Rahmani has had to be the solid centerpiece in that defense alongside Di Lorenzo, Matias Oliveira, and of course Spinazzola. So with all the adversity, they've had a lot of injuries this season, Napoli. And yes, people will say, Michael, they've only had one competition to focus on this season. They've had no Europe. Antonio Conte basically threw away the Coppa Italia. That's what Antonio Conte does. He doesn't care about cup competitions. All he cares about is winning the league. And I'm sure Napoli fans couldn't care less about the Coppa Italia as long as they won the Scudetto. I really do believe that this is Antonio Conte's greatest achievement because they were such a mess last season. For example, with Chelsea, they were terrible. Then he came in. It was basically the same team that had won the Premier League 2 seasons before. Inter, he really rejuvenated the team. They bought a lot of players like the Hakimi, Lukaku's, and that obviously was when Inter spent the money and their aspiration was winning the Scudetto. But for this Napoli team, yes, they have spent some money last summer. That's because they knew they were going to sell Kvaratskhelia and they were trying to sell Osimhen, but they couldn't get the money for him. And all of the formations, I have never seen Antonio Conte in the last 5 to 6 years play a 4-3-3, play a 4-3-2-1, a 3-5-2, a 3-4-3, a 3-4-2-1. Like, this guy's had to adapt to so many injuries, so many different players coming into the squad, that it's Antonio Conte's greatest achievement. Now, what will the future hold? Who knows? Let's talk about that a little bit later. Because some of the players, Scott McTominay, Scott McSauce, Scott McMaradona. I mean, what a season from McTominay. To see where he was at Manchester United, basically outcasted and said, okay, go to Serie A. Oh, people in Manchester United fans will say, oh, look at that league. Oh, if Scott McTominay can perform there, that just shows everything about that league. No, it's because Antonio Conte saw McTominay and said, I need this guy. He will provide a different element in the midfield. Goal scoring threat, can score goals outside the box, because that's something that Napoli was really missing in the midfield, was a goal scoring option. Anguissa is a baller, box to box, doesn't get you a lot of goals even though he scored this season. And Lobotka to Billy Gilmore, they're more of a controller type midfielders. So getting Scott McTominay was so vital for Napoli this season, and it's panned out perfectly. And now he's like a legend. Wherever he goes in Naples, he will get a free meal, free drinks, free everything for the rest of his life. You don't have to spend any more money, Scott McTominay, because you have done so well. And it's just beautiful to see a player who really wasn't going well with his career at Manchester United has a different element, and people need to get away from toxic relationships. Look at all the Kardashian relationships. They're toxic. Get away from there and you'll become a better person. He's MVP this season of Serie A. Unbelievable. I didn't have him in my top 5 transfers this season, but now when I look back on it, he might have to be. He might have to be like 4 or 5. I still think Rejuvenating has been a really good signing for Atalanta, but Scott McTominay, he is forever now a legend for Napoli with the goals he scored. Big game player, by the way. His physicality is such a difference maker in this league that some defenders can't handle it, and other midfielders, they cannot handle with Scott McTominay. So shout out to Scott McTominay. Unbelievable season from him, and he's now MVP of Serie A. Then you gotta look at Lukaku. Lukaku and Conte, these guys are irresistible. Conte, that he gets the best out of Lukaku this season. Yes, Lukaku hasn't scored a lot of goals this season compared to previous seasons, and he's getting older and older, 31 years old or 32 years old, if I'm not mistaken. But Lukaku has also showed up in the big games. He scored yesterday against Cagliari, and he got the big goal to secure the Scudetto for Napoli. Gotta give it to Lukaku. Some people will hate him. Some people will say, he's never been a world-class striker. Wherever he goes, he scores goals, except for that Chelsea run, because he basically said, yeah, I'm out of here. He gave that interview and said, adios. I know everybody will clown Lukaku for the World Cup performance against Croatia, where he had basically a 3.14 XG all by himself. But Lukaku still, in these big moments for Antonio Conte, he does his job. He gets the goals, he provides assists, he provides the link-up play, the hold-up play. Lukaku will go down as an underappreciated striker, I think, when he retires. And wherever Conte goes, I'm sure Lukaku already has his bags packed, because he knows he is joining Conte wherever he goes. So yeah, shout out to Lukaku, shout out to Scott McTominay. Love Lobotka, love Anguissa. I think Di Lorenzo, I'm not his biggest fan, but again, he wins the Scudetto. Well, Di Lorenzo, I think, has improved a lot this season compared to the disaster we saw last season and at the Euros. His confidence was rock bottom. Conte steps in, brings the confidence to Di Lorenzo, brings the confidence back to Meret, and you see these players are shining on the biggest stage, and it's so beautiful to see, because Naples is a football town. Like, there is no doubt about it. When you think of footballing cities around the world, you think of Buenos Aires, you think of London, you think of Naples, you could say Marseille. Like, these cities, they breathe football. The football club in that city is everything. With Dortmund, with Marseille, all of these cities, football is 24/7. They talk about it, they live it, they plan their whole entire year around the season. And you saw the celebrations yesterday in the city. Ridiculous. Look at all the flares, the fireworks, and all the people are just so happy, because in the 2010s, Napoli played some great football with the Mertens, the Hamziks, Cavani, Lavezzi. I mean, so many ballers. But they could never win the Scudetto. They had to go through the struggles. They had the Carlo Ancelotti's there. They had so many different managers. Then you see Spalletti come into the squad. He wins the Serie A title. And then you now see Antonio Conte. He enters the city and he wins the title. So these two managers will be icons of the city forever. Look at how they adore Maradona. They will adore Spalletti. They will adore Conte. They will adore Scott McTominay because Naples, they breathe football. And for them and the city, it's a beautiful thing to see. But lastly, on Antonio Conte, go down as one of the greatest league managers of all time. When you give him time and you just say, hey, Antonio Conte, you have one project to focus on, he will deliver. But if you sprinkle a little European nights on there, he might struggle. So I think for Antonio Conte, it's such an achievement to win a Scudetto with 3 different sides. I know Capello did it with Juventus, AS Roma, and Milan. Obviously, you know, the Juventus titles were revoked because of Calciopoli, but still, you got to give credit to Capello. Antonio Conte will go down as one of the greatest Italian managers of all time, but he needs some European success. He desperately needs it. Will he ever achieve it? Who knows? But in the league, you cannot beat this guy. And what does the future hold for him with Napoli? Who knows? I mean, people, if you have not seen the reaction of the hug between Antonio Conte and De Laurentiis yesterday, it just speaks volumes to how toxic this combination is. But the toxic combination provided the 4th Scudetto in Napoli's history. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't spectacular compared to the last Scudetto for Napoli, but heck, it's the gritty desire that got them this title. Inter had their chance, they bottled it. Atalanta had their chance, they bottled it. Napoli are deserving champions, and now we will see what the future holds for Napoli. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, people. Antonio Conte, is he one of the greatest league managers in this century? And is Scott McTominay now the best signing in Europe this season? Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Remember to follow me on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, join the Discord, all those links, description down below. But have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world. Till next time. Adios.